What is up, everybody? I hope you guys are all having a fantastic Tuesday. Lots of news coming out. Coming back after about a 2-day break here, the first thing that I saw today that piqued my interest was this article from Ars Technica stating to be prepared, banks are on alert for Russian reprisal cyber attacks on SWIFT. The payments messaging system SWIFT could be targeted as a pinch point of the global transactions network. Big banks fear that SWIFT faces a growing threat of Russian cyber attacks after 7 of the country's lenders were kicked off the global payments messaging system SWIFT over the weekend. We've seen this is VTB, etc., but some of the verbiage in here is really interesting to me. And this, right here, there are lots of concerns about SWIFT, said a financial regulator that supervises some of the banks. Banks seem to be comfortable with their own cyber security levels, but a hit to SWIFT would be very detrimental to the whole banking system. I think that's even an understatement. It would be catastrophic. The one thing that I found in here is they basically talk about a node. And we know that nodes are basically just computers on a network, right? But it's just interesting, the phraseology, and this is from a senior bank executive. During warfare, it's the most effective place to hit. It's the nucleus of the global banking system, the node that connects everything. And we can go down below here, and it's saying that, from a SWIFT statement, SWIFT takes security very seriously. Strong control environment in place for physical and cyber security. Like banks, market infrastructures, and other financial institutions, SWIFT continuously monitors the threat landscape and adapts to responses accordingly. Definitely will pay attention to this. It could be just rhetoric coming out, but we do know that a lot of the banks have kind of been within Russia. Some of the largest ones, VTB, I believe, is the second largest bank in Russia, cut off from the banking system of SWIFT, or the payment system, I should say messaging system, payments messaging system of SWIFT. Furthering the shift to digital banking, I saw this as well today. HSBC is going to shut down 69 physical branches and continues its shift towards online banking. Moving forward here, this should be a little bit comical to some of you, but it's actually something that pisses me off a little bit. And thank God we have crypto, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to hedge against inflation. But obviously that's not an issue for the Congress, individuals that are working for Congress in the United States, because they just secured a 21% increase in pay. And it's obviously phrased around keeping those individuals in-house. So the mammoth $1.5 trillion omnibus spending package contains something for everybody, just about. But on Capitol Hill itself, perhaps the biggest news is the inclusion of a 21% increase in its member representational allowance, the budget line that supports constituent services and other functions of congressional offices. They hope that this quote-unquote long overdue boost will lead to widespread increases in House staff pay, leading to greater staff retention. Now, we know that, given most of us do not work for the government, and if you are working at your normal job on a yearly basis, you're lucky to get 3% on an annual basis. And we know inflation, I believe, was last quoted at about 10%, which was the most in 40 years. As of this year, which is just insane. Well, Congress, individuals that work for Congress obviously don't have to worry about that, because they've just given themselves a 21% increase in pay, or the potential to do so. It's honestly comical at this point in time. It's amazing to me that we see spiking prices of pretty much all commodities. We've seen spiking prices in grain, spiking prices in oil and gas. And Congress is just patting itself on the back, and they are allowing themselves to hedge against inflation based on laws that they're passing, which is just complete insanity when the everyman and every woman struggles on a consistent basis. But like I said, we do have digital assets for now that do provide additional opportunities as far as what we can gain as far as yield on an annual basis, and thank God for that. Moving forward, this is the European Parliament putting this out. Cryptocurrencies in the EU, new rules to boost benefits and curb threats. Now, they certainly are talking about ESG and sustainability mechanisms within this. What's interesting to me, to reduce the high carbon footprint of cryptocurrencies, particularly of the mechanisms used to validate transactions, MEPs asked the Commission to present MEPs with a legislative proposal to include in the European Union taxonomy for sustainable activities any crypto asset mining activities that contribute sustainably to climate change by the 1st of January 2025. Again, we see that 2025 date. Binance wins a crypto license in Bahrain amid the Middle East expansion. We certainly know what's going on in the Middle East as far as digital asset adoption. I think that it was just last week during Darren and I's podcast where Dubai had put out a regulatory framework. We know Bahrain is one of the more open areas as far as innovation is concerned. Starting to see quite a bit coming out of the Middle East region. We've seen Binance make a lot of moves. Essentially, even a couple of weeks ago, Binance sitting on a board within Russia. This might have been a month ago. Sitting on a board within Russia that contained like 98% of the Russian banks. So Binance is certainly making moves. And kind of piggybacking on top of all of this, we've seen things like the Ripple Creator Fund. We've seen the XRPL grants. We've seen the Hedera Foundation, HBAR Foundation, and what they're trying to do for innovators. I think Stronghold, which is not Strongblock, but Stronghold did an innovator fund recently. So Stellar Development Foundation launching a $30 million blockchain fund for startups, which is great. Hopefully that garners more innovation within the Stellar ecosystem, and it also empowers contributors and developers to build and to innovate. And then last but not least, before we get into Bitcoin price, Seeki is using NFTs to build a better streaming economy for artists. This is on Hedera Hashgraph. And this is actually really, really big. I've been a musician for a long time. I'm not as active as I used to be, but I think about my buddy who I've been best friends with for years, who is certainly a musician, tries to still write put out albums and do everything else. And there is not a level playing field in a lot of different industries, and music is certainly one of them. For musicians, the benefits of the streaming economy haven't been equally distributed. Population of artists, producers, engineers, etc., etc. Now, what this is going to be doing is essentially empowering artists. The royalties right off the bat from what you would get within a platform like this via NFTs or whatever the mechanisms of sales are will be they'll dwarf any platforms that are out there right now. And we know the utility within the Hedera Hashgraph ecosystem. So this to me is very, very exciting. You can look through this if you want to. It was on Billboard actually, so certainly gaining some traction from a media perspective. Last but not least, Bitcoin, USD, and the price action going on right now. I still am trying to keep it as simple as possible for myself, and I saw a tweet from Dread Bongo today saying that the kind of the macro level type stuff has certainly changed, and maybe it's a mistake to look left about price action and things like that. Now, I do agree, especially given the shift towards digital finance and everything else, that we are not going to see a complete... I don't think that crypto goes away. I don't think that there's going to be a crash that eliminates everybody, but I do have to look left, and that's because it's the only historical thing that I can look at for price action, right? Measuring something about what's going on a kind of a macro scale from geopolitics and everything else is great, but I can't reference that with crypto necessarily yet. Obviously, 2008, kind of the crisis spurred Bitcoin and spurred this entire innovation and this entire economy that we're dealing in right now, but I still, I have to look back and say, if we see the 21 EMA on the weekly cross below the 50, maybe we have some sort of a capitulative moment. And I could be completely wrong. I don't know if it's going to be, kind of the 1 year type thing. Now, historically, like I've talked about before, and I've shared it, I actually did a full-blown thing here with explaining everything on Patreon. When this cross occurs, generally that spells for a 50% correction, about 90 days until that correction bottoms, and then you've obviously got some time before price action gets above and we start to see the trend reverse. But I mean, once you get to the trend reversal, that's not the best opportunity to potentially invest. It's kind of either trying to, you're never going to catch capitulation, but trying to catch somewhere near the fear when it's at its lowest, and even if you don't do that, trying to buy into the consolidation period that normally occurs right after that. But yeah, I'll be interested to see what happens, because as you can tell, I mean, we're right there pretty much. We're gearing for a cross, but maybe we do see price action bump up above, and that is what I want. Certainly, I want Bitcoin to go. I want Bitcoin because right now Bitcoin is still, make no mistake about it, pretty much driving everything. If Bitcoin crashed down to 20 grand right now, or 20K, everything would crash way harder than 50%, or at least 99.9% of assets would in this space. But I look at that as an opportunity, like I've spoken with you guys about before as well. It'll be an opportunity that mentally will be very hard to take, but it's an opportunity that if you're buying utility whenever it's oversold and you're willing to just wait on it, it's a gigantic opportunity. I mean, think about buying things like Cardano at 2 cents. I bought Alliance Block at 6 cents. And that was before the run up. So, and that was actually after the consolidation period. But, it is what it is, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Paying attention to price action, certainly, but certainly paying attention to the narrative. And I didn't just see the banks on alert for Russian reprisal cyber attacks on SWIFT only coming from Ars Technica. I saw it from multiple different places today. We consistently are seeing the digital shift occur. That doesn't mean that our assets that we may or may not be investing in go to the moon overnight. But it means if you're dealing in sustainability and if you're looking at decent entry points in this market, you certainly have a winning shot. And that is not financial advice. That's just common sense. All right? I'll talk to you guys later.